What's up, y'all? Welcome back. It's Book Club. Giving you take two. We heard part one was amazing with the Amani and Marcus Rivera conversation. So we wanted to go ahead and give you another sense of flavor with it. We're wrapping up Will. This has honestly been one of the more difficult books that we've read as a squad for two reasons. One, it's just a thick read. It's like a long and a lot of pages. But other
Yeah.
than that, too, I think another reason why it was really difficult to read is because there's a lot of things that, as we're reading Will's story, required us to. I don't think it required, but it like brought up certain things that some of us could relate to, and it made us be intentional about how to face certain things and heal over things as we step into the rest of this year. So I'm glad we're finishing up today, to be honest. I'm looking forward for the next one for those catching the recording or hearing it. The new book information is already posted. I already did the chapters and we're reading The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck. So
You
shout
got
out
the
to Moni for
bug.
the recommendation. I got the book. Um, I'm excited for the read. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's also like little questions in here that you can actually like participate in. So I'm looking forward to the active reflection that's going to occur in it. But anyways, Imani, I'll let you kick us off. I know you didn't finish reading, but overall, would love to hear exactly what worked or what stood out while you read the book. The We read the rest of the book, which is the chapters on retreat, surrender, love, and then the epilogue, which is jump. So pretty cool.
Yeah, good morning. Good
Go
morning,
ahead, girl.
everybody.
Go ahead.
No, I did not finish reading the book, but I did start listening to Surrender because that was the one that I was interested in the most. And that one, because I can relate to that on such a deep level. And so what I did catch, sorry, recording. Sorry, people catching me on the recording, okay? No excuses. I work a lot. Minor excuse. Okay. So what I caught from Surrender was Will talking about a harem. And I let's look this up because I really don't know what a harem
That's
is.
so
Like I
funny that
like
and when
I
I said,
really
look, I wrote next to that word in my book, I said, that is crazy. But I started understanding as I kept reading what old girl was saying. So it was
harem. How do you even spell that?
so essentially it's a house full of concubines. This was like really practiced back in like ancient Israel. David had an harem, so did King Solomon. And in that culture and time and that heritage, it's like polygamy and things were acceptable in that area. You had a wife, which was your person under marriage, and then you had women that dealt with the household, the chores, as well as produced other offspring. So that's what the harem was. But if you kept reading, old girl, I think her name is Miriam. What's his name?
Michaela?
Michaela, yeah, sorry. Yeah, Michaela,
Miriam is crazy.
Michaela talked about it started with M.
Yeah, okay.
Um, she did talk about how a harem doesn't have to be just for sex, which was a
She did
different
say that.
perspective. Yeah. But anyways, go ahead.
She did say it was for creativity, and so she started suggesting to him that other than um, people from women from America, he should have um, concubines from. I'm just kidding. So he should have women from other countries too who speak other languages and really create a lot of diversity. What is very interesting about this choice to put this in the book is the fact that he was talking to this woman. He immediately starts calling. He's like, she's a witch. What kind of Jedi mind tricks? I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly what got women killed in Salem. Just like this exact
Yeah.
freaking thought. Like an intelligent woman getting a man to say something. Anyways, So he actually started to go along with it. He makes his harem. He had about 25 women. And then over the weekend, he decides, nah, I'm not gonna reach out to these women because 20, if he can't take care of one woman, how can he take care of 25?
Yeah.
Which is fair. Which is fair. Um, I do appreciate that realization because but I didn't know what a harem was at the time, so I was still kind of like confused. Like, what is he talking about? Now that I know, Will Smith, Will Smith is a hot mess, bro. I really want to know what really went down with the slap. I really want to know why him and Jada ain't living together. Because reading this book, I'm like, it's got to be in here somewhere. Like, I need to
Yeah.
know. But
Yeah,
that's
but
a, you know,
some things are behind closed door business, you know?
no, but like reading his autobiography now, I'm like, now I really want to know the truth. Like,
Yeah.
let me get up in there. I'm gonna start with Willow, and then I'm gonna just, you know, work my way up, so she'll
Yeah.
start telling me stuff. But imagine, imagine y'all like 5 years from now, like me and Willow are like super close, and I'm like, yo,
What's up with your
and I,
dad?
and I finally get to tell you guys what actually happened.
Uh, that's actually funny, dude.
All right. But surrender. So I have, oh man, if surrender is crazy. Surrender is like one of the most raw feelings a person can have, or raw experience a person can have. When you kind of just like let it all take over you, let God take over you, let the shadow take over you, let all the flooding of emotions and everything just like let it go and just be a funnel, a channel. So um he was talking about like the dark parts of him and how the person that he isn't often, is the person that is like the real person, the real version of Will that has gotten him to these very of high level of acting, producing, and it's really cool because it's the truth. Like I love me some Carl Jung. He's like one of the main, I think I want to say he's like a psychologist or something like that. But he talks a lot about shadow work and Will says that this part of him is the one who told um Jeff and JL to move to LA. This is the one who told him to forget the fear when doing Ali, which
Yeah,
if
Uncle
y'all
Fluffy,
ever seen
Uncle
Ali,
Fluffy.
Uncle Fluffy, it was Uncle Fluffy, which is Will is a weirdo, bro. Like, why is but no judgment because everybody has a persona. But it's still like, why is his name Uncle Fluffy,
Yeah, he just put a name to it, and then
I
he's like,
know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's good. You want to put a name to the darkness. That gives it like its own way of having its own channel to express rather than put you in situations that create a lot of disharmony in the body. It's just funny that his name is Uncle Fluffy. I'm just saying that. But that part Uncle Fluffy was the one who was able to get him in these places he was too scared to do or you know to anything. So I thought that was really cool because that is a lot of the task of surrendering. And after this, I will read the rest of the book. So, um, it's like the first like 5 minutes of the chapter, and it's like, all right, y'all, this book has been so good. Now I will give my overall because you know overall, the book was wild. A lot of up and down emotions. Oh my gosh. So many up and down emotions that I couldn't even understand at some points, but then would later understand, you know? So it's like I had the opportunity to see Will when he was like just a fresh little prince, born and raised on the playground is where he spent most of his days. Okay. Oh my gosh, just the end of the book. We gotta throw that up in there. Um, but to see the progression of his life and him still be a grown man and still go through go through these like really deep dark issues to this day. That's why I really want to know like what's going on. He needs to make a part two of this book because I want to know what's happening in his later years to understand the wisdom of an older man, I mean, he ain't old, but like an older man with even more wisdom. And to see, of course, how the Jada situation played out, but to hear that knowledge behind how, like, everything that he's learned, and he's still having issues dealing with it, but that makes it more human in a lot of ways. Because I think as we grow up, we start off as kids and we have like this doe-eyed perspective on the world, and then life happens. And as a kid, life happens and it feels like the end of the world. And that creates a lot of questions and bitterness and fear. And then we grow, as we continue to grow, we learn that more and more stuff happens and great things happen, bad things happen, and it's all a part way of the world. And hopefully, as you get to a certain point in your age or your mindset, that a person will realize like it is just the way of the world, and these things are here to guide you in on your path on your towards your true purpose if you haven't found it yet. And Will, he wanted to be the biggest movie star in the world, and that man accomplished that. I also loved how he accomplished it by what we're doing here, studying the ways of the people who are in the positions we want to be in. T T T T T T T T T. He studied Tom Cruise and outperformed Tom Cruise. Like I would say that Will Smith is a bigger movie star than Tom Cruise. He took the title. He took it. Cause all of the like if you think about Will's like his oh God, what is it? His catalog, it's like Ali, 7 pounds, Pursuit of Happiness, Men in Black.
Because I like the Mission Impossible. I don't want to tell you. Mission Impossible go crazy.
It's a little corny for me though. A little corny. But I
Yeah,
like them, but they just a smidge corny. That's all. But it's cool. He be serious running across everything. He just be running all the time. But and then you have Will in TV, which was actually kind of brief if you think about it. And then his music career, but his nah, his music career was cool. The fact that he even got that Grammy as well is like such a huge accomplishment for such a young man at the time. But now that we've gone through the book, looking back on, even the abuse that he faced and how we were talking about our own situations with abuse, and it's just crazy that he could be in a position to speak with his father without he's like still searching for guidance from his father despite everything that has happened. That's true forgiveness, which that's true forgiveness in my eyes. If you're able to have these conversations and seek the advice of a man that you have hated in moments, I mean, that's power. That's true power. I mean, forgiveness is forgiveness is everything to like for your soul, but having a relationship with your parents is yeah, it's very sweet and powerful and old world, if you will. So throughout the book, I definitely learned a lot about how even like in a grown man, which we're all grown at this point, but like even a grown man can learn from his mistakes and get to another place in his life and then have to go through more just to understand himself more. So it's a lot of layers in this book, layers of old pain that's stacked up with new situations that added to that pain. And then now he's just kind of going through it, trying to understand himself and trying to continue to be a great father, a great husband, a great artist. And that is the best part of this book. So, other than that, I would say his mom is badass. His mom is so badass. Okay. Y'all, his mom did everything. She gave him the intellect, she gave him the will. And she got my respect, especially with that amputee situation, bruh. Still globe trotting with one leg. It's without a calf, but still. Um, that was probably the most impactful situation in that book. It actually gave me like such a cool perspective from this book of her being able to survive even with being amputated. Like that's so amazing to me. Like I see that as such power coming from a woman who already had been through so much and she did not want to stop. She trusted herself, she trusted in God, and one leg was not going to stop her from traveling and enjoying her life. And because of that mindset, she saved herself from possible like full on death with the hospital in Turkey. So shout out to this book. Definitely happy and excited to go on to the next one. It was a thick one, thick read. Um, yeah, love the learning lessons that Will went through from his younger years, blowing all his cash to, I
Pay all
mean, being
taxes,
who he
y'all.
is
Pay
now.
all taxes. Gotta pay your taxes. We got tax season. It's about to be
Pay your taxes.
April
Keep
15th.
the money to the side,
April 15th. Quit playing.
please. That's real.
But
I
real
can't
life.
believe that man lost everything. Got so wealthy and was just buying all that stuff because he was in so much pain. But that's what people do. Like there's always addictions to or coping mechanisms for people, which for Will, it was shopping. For other people, it's drinking. For other people, it's drugs. For other people, it's sleeping around, which he did a lot of sleeping around too. But
Yeah, he said it was shopping in sex room. Let him.
yeah, exactly. And everybody has their vices. So I mean, I gotta know what's going on with this man. Mark my words. I'm gonna find out. All
Once you
right.
know, once Willow tells you, let us know.
Yeah, I got
But
you.
but I think
Unless he has me sign an NDA, then I'll just wink, like I know. So we
facts, like
establish.
histories. No, I appreciate your take on the entire book and what you read. Um, I felt like there was a lot as well. There's a bunch of stuff that he was just like telling his story and like just documenting it, which is really cool because like it's probably more so for not just himself, but like his future generations to come. Like I wrote a book, it's about my life. You should read it just so that his legacy can like actually learn and continuously not just be inspired, but actually develop differently with it. I really like how he ended the book though. The last three I related to a lot in terms of his relationship and figuring out how to operate in silence, and then how that surrender allowed him to develop more of healing and understand his grandmother's perspective as she was a devout Christian aiming to really serve other people and operate in love. And like that ended to kind of like where he's at now, because even after the whole slap thing, like we can see how Will's kind of like in his own space now. He's just doing his thing, vibing out. And he finally has gotten to this sense of like acceptance of knowing who he is and then doing the deep work. to operate in as much authenticity as possible. And I feel like the sooner we do that, the more significant our lives are, not just to ourselves, but also to others. So I highlighted some things from what I picked up on from chapter, I don't even know the name or the number of the chapter, chapter 19, retreat. There was one
Hey, I just
thing.
wanted to throw out that Will Smith, and then I'm gonna mute myself. Will Smith is 57 years old, so it's never too late to do this.
Never too
Ever,
late. Never too late. Now,
ever.
I agree with that. I appreciate you saying it too, because as he was writing it, he was like, yo, I was 40 something having this realization, you know? And, I'd be looking at my dad's 48, about to be 49. And my pops, I can see him kind of getting pulled in his faith as well, and just having a different perspective. So I'm grateful to be exposed to what I've been exposed to, but being like willing to accept new ways of thinking and grow into that at such an early age. Because I can't even imagine when I'm going to learn, God willing, I get to 45, 50 years old, right? One thing that he said was he recognized when he went on the retreat, he essentially went and traveled after him and Jada decided to like split up. So he was upset because he's like, yo, I've done everything by the book. I've got as much bread, fame. I did all that I freaking could, and it still wasn't enough. What is up, and why can't I have this sense of like I'm not doing enough yet? Right? He specifically said, like, once you get to more, you want more. And he was like, I was really frustrated with this concept. And then he got invited on a trip and he was like, let's go. So he had this realization when they were taking forever to go on the jet skis, and he was like antsy. He was like, "Y'all, we gotta go. We gotta go like now." And this is what he said. He's like, "Dude, am I an addict or what?" He goes, "I did not know how to stop or be still or be quiet or alone. It was the approval of others, and to secure their approval, I became addicted to winning, and to guarantee and sustain my stream of massive victories, I became addicted to working, to grinding, and obsessively pursuing perfection." If that does not explain 18-year-old Mark Rivera, I don't know what does. It's actually wild because I was like in the same understanding of like, dude, I've got to change my life and my family's life. And there's no other way but to bust my ass and make that thing happen. And I wrote next to this, feel this, right? He said, I saw downtime as the enemy, a place where you lose things. But the most perturbing aspect of my need to feel every second was that it kept me from having to feel. And I didn't recognize it in the moment, but I guess I was also afraid of silence and stillness because I'd have to face what it is that I've been distracting myself from fully being able to understand. Like I didn't see or recognize some of the emotional things and trauma I had to learn to deal with until I was older in life. And I felt like, yo, I've got to figure out the first part is acceptance, right? You've got to acknowledge what it is and then accept that it's that way. And I knew like, yo, my mind was always racing and I needed people. And like COVID was a blessing in disguise because it forced me to separate myself from what I was so accustomed to, being around social events, being around consistent communication. I was building my business, but I wasn't in tune with myself, and therefore I was never going to be able to get to the new levels. And it forced me to like really acknowledge that, bro, I struggle with being by myself. Even when me and my ex decided to split, I was filling up that time with other things versus just being in solitude until I recognized like I need to really figure out who I am and what I want. He said later in the chapter, why are you so afraid of silence? Silence is the root of everything. If you spiral into its void, 100 voices will thunder messages you long to hear. He said he got this message from somebody on Instagram. He's like, I always get quotes like this, and I'm like, kind of annoyed by it, but this one made absolutely no sense to me. And so he responded. And essentially, this guy had invited him to this thing called a vipassana, which means to see things as they really are. He goes, it's weird how people can feel when you're seeking. Higher curiosity seems to emit energy at a different frequency. And it really does. Like when you allow yourself to be open-minded to what can be and to learn and to grow and develop, yo, things start to change. Oh, I'm so annoyed. I just lost my page. I had this in here somewhere, but it's okay. I'll find it. Oh, it's right here. Ah, quit blaming me. But but yeah, so yeah, I could relate to that because I was like, yo, once I started understanding that I was not good in silence and in solitude, I had to recognize in order for me to be a better version of myself, this is something I have to get good at. And that's something I could relate to while he was writing in it. Um, Later on in Surrender, I really like Surrender as well, because of that acknowledgement of the parts of himself that he was not addressing that he created in his childhood as a coping mechanism. So like we all do this. I went to a personal development event a few years ago in Miami. This guy named Nick, can never pronounce his last name. It starts with an M, but essentially he has one arm, one finger, and he was born without legs and another arm. So he literally makes the most out of his life with one arm and one finger as a detrix. That's it. And like he literally wobbles, but he speaks on stages all over, and he talks about how he had to focus and learn how to be grateful for what he did have and operate at a sense of a different perspective than what he was prior. Otherwise, he would have just gave up on life. And he wanted to a lot. And he took us through this exercise of imagining that we came across our like 5-year old, 6-year old self. And in the exercise, there was one point where we had to hug ourselves. I've never done this. I was literally crying throughout this process because there are things that I've been aiming for that I know my my younger self had to grow up faster than I had wanted because of the situations that I was born into and that I didn't ask to be a part of. For example, my parents split when I was 4. So when he told me to think about, I'm not gonna get emotional, but my 5 or 6-year-old self, like I could see this little boy attempting to take on an adult responsibility for his sibling, my brother at the time, and who would then become an older brother of 3 other sisters and have this desire of having a family one day. And so as I can see like myself, I recognize how I distracted or created these different personas because I too was worried about approval from people all throughout middle school and even high school, even though I said I didn't care. We all say that, but we generally do until you acknowledge and you're able to address. A little side note, quit playing with me. I'm a little fresh fade. I was like, yo, I do my own beard. So I just want to give myself some props. Because younger, I look, 5-year-old Marcus would be like, there ain't no way you got a clean beard like that. And I said, I do. Anyways, I gave him a hug and I'm able to heal from some of that stuff. And one of the things in Surrender that I enjoyed from his acknowledgement of this, right, is she said, as long as you do things for the approval of a woman, you will never be free. When a woman sees that she can bend you, she loses trust in you. We need you to be solid. We need your yes to be a yes and your no to be a no. And that's biblical. Like Jesus literally says, don't like your words matter. Allow your yes to be yes and your no to be a no. So like I really wrote next to it biblical. It's in the Bible and it's important because you've got to recognize like I've had to learn in my singleness and in my solitude that unless I love me for me, unless I'm able to be accepting of who I am and what I bring to the table without another significant other, then I'm going to constantly be looking that into other people. And essentially, what I recognize, what he was saying about Hiram, he wasn't necessarily saying, like, I want to have sex with all these women. He kind of already grew past that. He was wanting to have the comfort of the feminine energy that all men are craving from having that peace and support and that love that comes from only a woman can bring to the table. So like he was seeking that, but through different areas from women that brought it in different ways, as she was saying, like intellectuals, people that are able to take care of the home or whatever the case is. But regardless of the fact, she was trying to get him to come to the attention that like you never really wanted that. Why do you think you did though? And I was like, that's a powerful question. Like, if you just ask yourself these deeper thought provoking questions, it forces you to do what most people don't. And that's literally think, process, reflect. And if you do that, then you can come to terms with what you have done or what you haven't done, and then you can move forward and become what she called a freestanding man. And I was like, oh, this is good. Freestanding man is self-aware, self-reliant, self-motivated, self-confident, and utterly unswayed by people's approval or disapproval. He knows who he is, he knows what he wants, and because of this, he surrenders his considerable gifts into the service of others. In other words, you're so confident in your purpose, your mission, and your calling that you're able to authentically be you and understand it's not about you. Praise God, dude, because this has been a long time coming, but I feel like I'm the closest to this than I've ever been in my life, and I'm only 28. I really do know that about myself. Like, I don't care what anybody says or thinks. I know the work that I put in, I know the intention behind the work. I've done this thing purposely for a purpose on purpose, period, point blank. I don't care what people think or their opinions of it. There's been actual thought, action, energy, and resources put towards a certain objective of me becoming somebody who is self-aware, self-reliant, self-motivated, self-confident, and utterly unswayed. I've found my roots in the Bible, and it's helped me understand not only who I am, but whose I am. And I can entrust in that. And I've been able to serve more people because of it. And I'm just grateful. I was like, yo, I've got a long way to go. I'm nowhere near perfect, but quit playing with me. I've been growing, and I'm glad that it happened before I was 42, gone through a multitude of things that even though the world might consider successful, we can see from Will's perspective, he was going through a mental and emotional hell on earth, from unsatisfied marriages to a lack of stewardship in his finances. All of it, essentially came down and boiled down to let's go. All of it really came down to understanding exactly what to grow for and towards. And for me, that's always just been understanding where my value is at. In order to do that, you've got to understand who you are and then be willing to relinquish that with others, right? It said surrender has always been a negative word for me. It meant losing or failing or giving up. I feel like for men, we have a hard time doing this. I did for a long time. But it transformed from a weakness word to an infinite power concept. Opposites were equally as powerful. Inaction, receptiveness, action, non-resistance, being. Stopping was equally as powerful as going. Resting was equally as powerful as training. Silence was equally as powerful as talking. Letting go was equally as powerful as grasping. Losing could be equal to winning in terms of my growth and development. And he talked about essentially he understood for the first time what his Gigi was saying in terms of let go and let God. At first, he took offense to it because he was like, "What do you mean? You can't just rely on God delivering. You've got to put in work." But what she was saying was let go and let God work, right? If you understand that God will do the 99%, you can focus on the one. I was like, yo, that is fire. That is fire. Because there's so many things that happen without us thinking about it. He referenced to sleeping, right? When you sleep, you don't have your brain is quote unquote off, but it's completely working. You're breathing, your body is carrying out functions, and you're literally operating in a functional state. In fact, like there's studies on terms of your breathing rates and your cardiovascular blood movement and how things are more intentionally operational while you're sleeping, which is why, as a human being, you cannot go without sleep. And for me, I used to be like, I used to have a negative connotation with rest and silence and stillness. And then I read my Bible, and all throughout the Bible, God's telling me, like, dude, rest. In stillness, that's where I'm at. And I've had to understand that, yo, if resting is productive, then it's no longer non-productive. It's producing more for you in sense of your fulfillment, in sense of your capacity, in sense of your energy and fulfillment, period, point blank. And I was able to recognize in this as I was reading it, like, bro, that is so good because Like if you recognize that there's always room for growth and development, you're always winning. You're never really losing, right? And you can operate in the sense of dynamic that the world tells you is separate, right? They tell you failure is nowhere near as synonymous to success, but in all reality, you can't have success without failure, right? It's just important to know when to go and when to stop, as it is just important to know when to say yes and when to say no. Period, point blank. You've got to recognize this like ability to let go of control. I was literally talking about this morning in Bible study, which was like wild how things have lined up and the way that they did. Because for a long time, I was always like, my plan, my way, God bless me. Please, thank you. I feel like it should be this way. I'm doing everything I can to make it happen, but I'm doing it all on my own accord and my own beliefs, right? And in scripture, it tells us in a man's heart, he makes his plans, but it's the Lord who establishes our steps. So I'm like out here are my plans, Lord, please bless it. And God's like, I never told you to do none of that. Why would I bless it? And I'm like, dude, that's crazy. But essentially, also in the scripture, it tells us that whenever you commit your ways to the Lord, He makes your plan successful, which means the plans that you involve with seeking Him first and foremost, and then submitting that control, understanding it's His will and not yours, He'll make sure it succeeds because it's in alignment with Him. But we try to do things in our own way all the freaking time as human beings. And we saw that with Will as well. Like this man's like, dude, I'm gonna get it done. And I don't care what it takes or what it costs. And it cost him a lot. It cost me a lot. That's a good song by J. Cole, by the way. Should look it up. Anyways, one thing that he pointed out, I really love this too. He goes, I should be still and I should be quiet in order to better observe and understand people and circumstances around me. I noticed silence was euphoric. Minimizing my talking was maximizing my awareness. My name is Marcus Rivera, and I approve of this message. I literally have seen that in my own life, and I am an extremely observant individual. And I've learned how to not use it as a sense to have power over other people, but to remain in an authoritative position because I'm able to understand what is versus what I want it to be. Whenever I was able to shut up my brain and turn on my eyes and my ears, oh, bro, things changed for real for me because I stopped uh, leaning upon what most people do. And I say this all the time, but the perception of reality for most people is more real than reality itself, meaning they will be in their own made up world and that'll be more real to them because as you thinketh, so you are, then reality it is. So, like, even though that apple is red, if somebody wants to believe that apple is yellow, oh, it's going to be yellow to them. And there ain't nothing you can say or do. In their reality, it is yellow. So just let it be and know what it is and just keep it moving. That's helped me. I don't know. Anyways, well, when it came to the chapter, I think it's 21. Yeah, love. It's essentially his daddy-o passed away. So ruin it for you. He got diagnosed with a lung condition, and essentially he was told to have 6 more weeks. He ended up living, I think, like 3 months. So he had more than 6 weeks left, but he was deteriorating. And there was at one point where like his dad was just watching TV and he was like, hey, I want you to know that like you did a good job with your life. You did great. And I love you. And his dad never really like looked at him or acknowledged him. He kept his eyes fixed on the TV. He was watching news, but his eyes were welling up. So like he heard him, right? And it was really crazy because essentially when his time was up, uh Will's heart was racing and he called his dad's phone, and when his dad answered, essentially his dad said, I think it's tonight. Like he felt very confident that he was gonna go. And anyways, he was trying to figure out FaceTime. The dad didn't know how, so his Will's sister Ellen put him on FaceTime, and He said that they simply just looked at each other for 20 minutes just in silence. And Ellen was like, "You're just looking. You don't want to say anything to Will." And it said, Daddy-O searches for one last piece of wisdom, one final brick, but he's empty. He slowly shakes his head, a final surrender. He goes, "Shit, anything I ain't told this mother effer already, he sure ain't gonna get it from me tonight." And then he said, we shared a final laugh, we said goodbye, and 45 minutes later, his dad passed. Um, and he said one of the the biggest things is not knowing your ending. And one of the things that he recognized his dad was searching for, the burning question, was this: was my life useful? And it differed from his grandmother Gigi when she passed away, because she was committed to serving her community and to God's children. She was excited to go to heaven. To Gigi, God and love were synonymous. They were inseparable and indistinguishable. She worshiped God by loving others. Love was the only commandment that mattered. And if you were being loving, you wouldn't need all the others. Whereas the dad was like, he needed to know that his life was making it better for those that were around him while he was here. And his grandmother was like, I did what I could. I'm ready to go see my maker. Two different perspectives fed into the same person. And it made me recognize, like, bro, I spoke about this today as well. Like, the one thing that we have to look forward to is that we're going to be gone one day. He goes, life is like that. You're born into a bunch of characters. Everyone's looking at you. Everybody seems to be excited to see what you're going to do or end up doing. But you've got to have the end in mind and know where you're going. Otherwise, you're literally just aimlessly moving, right? He said that him and Jada eventually got back together and they were looking at each other. And what he said, they were about to go bungee jumping over the Grand Canyon for Will's 50th birthday. Um, oh, I think it was oh yeah, he said, spoiler alert, there is nothing that you can receive from the material world that will create inner peace or fulfillment. Daddy-O's death served me as a wake-up call for me. One day, one of us would be saying goodbye to the other, and I question, what did I want our ending to be? We are simultaneously 100% bound together and 100% free. And he was talking about him and his wife, Jada. And I was like, bro, but like that's true about all of our relationships. Like we're all connected, but we're not. We're all individually on our own, but we have a role and a positioning with each other. And if you recognize what it is, right? He ended the book as he was about to be jumping off of the helicopter with the bungee cord. And he was like, dude, your life really does flash before your eyes when you think you're about to go. He was like, I know I'm connected, I'm harnessed, I'm in here, but I'm scared to death. And he was like, I don't know am I about to leap to my death in front of my children? What's about to happen? And he goes as they were counting down from 2 to 1, right? He goes, look, I'm either gonna die or I'm not. If God wants me today, ain't nothing I can do about it anyway. If I die, I'm not even gonna know. So the real question is, how do I want to live? And it's real freaking life, man. Um, it almost made me emotional, like as I was like finishing out and rereading that, preparing for today, because as I don't know why it took him seeing his dad pass away to come to this realization, but I got in a really bad accident when I was 18. Stupid. I was racing some of my coworkers after work one day and I turned down a one-way trying to beat them. And as I came out, I had a really bad head-on collision. If I wasn't in a truck, I probably wouldn't be here. And that literally woke me up. And I'm like, yo, I've got to figure something out because our life is here today and gone tomorrow. And I'm gonna read this for the scripture, or excuse me, for the recording. But I really think it's important because it's essentially like where I've put my life at and why I live the way that I do, and it's made the difference for me. But this is from the book of James, and it's chapter 4, verse 13 through 17. And it reads like this. Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make profits and money. Why? You don't even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. And the way that I've been able to recognize that is we have to stay humble, right? Whenever he says our life is like a mist, that means like we're like vapor. Our days are literally numbered. We don't know when. Today could be our last day. And are you living faithfully, purposely, or are you just settling and existing? I think about this question all the time. Like, am I creating a life out of design and choice, or am I settling for one less than I'm capable of? Am I am I serving and making the most of my time, or am I just letting it slip through my fingers and not doing what I know that I'm supposed to do? And that's why I'm grateful for God's mercy because although I deserve nothing but the opposite of good, He gives me grace, which is allowing me to have what I don't deserve. And every day I get breath in my lungs, I've grown more mature in recognizing just how blessed I am. And it's allowed me to operate in a more sense of authenticity of who I am and how I can serve people. And it really does take a surrendering and a submission of letting go and allowing, God to do his thing. So there's some things that I've grown and had to deal with as I've read this book. And like I think it was purposeful. It felt like even though we were discussing and having conversations about it in book club with this book, I felt like it required us to have more individual time in reading it and processing it. And it's kind of like why I'm honestly ready for the next one, but it's helped me really come to face with some things that one, I can applaud myself on for doing, and two, that I need to continuously do in order to make sure that when I am blessed with the breakthrough and what is about to happen, the expansion of influence and territory and blessings, like I don't drop the ball or I don't lose sight of what matters most, and I can stay intentional about my relationships and my my work, my callings, but like just being in tune with the God that gives me life, you know what I'm saying? And that's where I've been able to find like an actual peace that really does transcend beyond our understanding. Like it's not my peace. It's literally Jesus's. And because of that, I can operate in a sense of like certainty in the midst of chaos. And like regardless of what's going on, I'm taking one step in front of the other and I'm just being consistent and disciplined in it and expecting the Lord to do whatever he's gonna do. And whenever my time is up, I'm confident now. I wasn't just a year ago, even though I've been faithful, but I'm confident now that I'll have a perspective that his grandmother had in terms of knowing with confidence that I did what I could to love and serve people with what was given to me and be expectant and ready to go to heaven versus trying to figure it out if I made a difference, trying to figure it out if I actually made an impact. Um, this past week for me has been like a bunch of answered prayers in a spiritual and relationship type of sense. And I definitely feel a shift happening in a way that didn't really imagine. And I'm looking forward to it because I think what comes next is going to be beyond what I could ask, think of, or imagine, period. So grateful, thankful. And that's a wrap on Will. Any last thoughts, sis?
What was that book that we were reading that was talking about personal hellscapes? Was
Oh,
that was that Winnie?
maybe if not the power of awareness. Um
No, this is a more recent book that we read
then it's
talking
prob-
about personal hellscapes. Was it Will? No, it wasn't Will. It was definitely not Will.
no, I know that winning Tim Grover was talking about how we've got to recognize that if we don't get our way out of hell, we'll stay there.
Yeah, okay, it was Winning then. Yeah, and I was thinking of it as a personal hellscape and like how what you were saying is like when we're not, you know, living to our highest potential and our fullness, our purpose, and serving others that becomes a hellscape because we're just not living at that point. It's more of
Especially if you're
we're
like
just
if you're
going with the
aware.
flow.
Like if you're aware, I think that's
Especially if you're aware, that's when hell starts feeling like your skin is on fire.
bro, you're literally, and it's caused by your own accord because of an unwillingness to act. And it's wild because, and that's
Yeah.
why I honestly pointed out that scripture because, like, if you know what you ought to do and you choose not to do it, you're literally sinning. You're allowing yourself to be separated from God, not just because you're going against obedience and doing what He said to do, but you're literally allowing yourself
Yeah.
to not be in purpose, even though you can.
It's,
It's
yeah,
deep.
it's giving Prince Zuko.
It, facts. Facts. Hey, only the real ones. Do not say the reference. Only the real ones will know. Prince Zuko for real. You gotta get it together. Nation, damn it.
It's giving ultimate Prince Zuko storyline, like, bruh,
Yeah, like the art.
that's
Hey,
for
but
real.
hey, once you come into acknowledgement, acceptance, and fulfillment of that, things change. We see it in that art too.
Things do change.
Yeah, and I see it, and I think that's where Will's at. I feel like him writing the book and putting his business out there when he don't have to. He literally never had to write the book. And he could genuinely just take all the things he did and put in a diary and go to the grave. But I really think it was purposeful. You know what I'm saying? Like he put it
Yeah,
out there to understand, like, hey, this is what I've done. This is where I was at. Here's where I'm at, and here's why I'm here. And I think obviously his parents and his grandparents had a significant impact on his relationship and his faith. Um, and I feel
definitely.
like we need to keep in consideration how that happens for us too. Period.
Yeah.
Point.
The
But anyway,
silence, the silence and surrender. I'm glad you read the rest of the book. Thanks. Shout out to Marcus for always coming through. Always.
appreciate it. I was literally gonna be like, "Hey y'all, it's just me today," and I'm gonna give the last take. I almost hang up the Zoom, but I figured I'd give y'all, whoever's watching this recording, an understanding of how impactful these last chapters were. So I'm glad you hopped
No,
on.
and they were. I am too. I'm glad you like went deeper into sacred silence and surrender. Um, oh my gosh, I remember when I first moved here, and this is just like so how powerful these things are when I
Real
first
quick,
moved
I'm gonna
here.
end this recording. I'm gonna end this recording. Family, we'll see y'all next week. Again, get the
I knew
book.
book,
The links are
please.
there. The chapters are updated. No excuses. Love you. Bye. Peace.